We often throw around the term generational on a number of different players that ultimately it's just not justified, and I think it's especially prevalent on the defensive line. There have been a number of defensive pass rush oriented players over the last few years that have generated the generational label. Abdul Carter was labeled as generational, Will Anderson got it and was justified in it, but to tell the truth, I have not seen a superstar game-changing edge rusher who I felt like was a sure thing really since Will Anderson Jr., but in 2027 I think we have one. South Carolina edge rusher Dylan Stewart is a physical specimen at the position. With freak athletic ability, a plethora of pass rushing moves, and some uncanny movement skills. In today's video, we will go over what Dylan Stewart does so well and why I think he has a chance to be one of the league's best pass rushers. But hey guys, if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like button. A football animation will appear when you do so, and it really helps get this video out to more NFL and NFL draft fans like yourselves. Comment down below what you guys think of Dylan Stewart and if you guys think that the hype is justified. But without further ado, let's get into it. Dylan Stewart was a 5-star recruit in the 2024 recruiting class and was locked in with the Gamecocks from the start. He burst onto the scene as a true freshman where he posted 51 pressures, 7 sacks, 15 tackles, 18 run stops, and had a 16.6% pass rush win rate. And he was a big reason why a lot of people thought that South Carolina would be able to make a run in 2025. But unfortunately, he didn't have the sophomore season that you were hoping for. He still had 37 pressures, 5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles, but his win rate came down to just 12.3%, and when you look at the counting stats, you're gonna say that Stewart regressed. But I think when you look at the tape, it tells a different story. Dylan Stewart was harboring a severe back injury that he decided to play through in the second half of the season, and I think it's especially apparent in the Clemson game that he just can't move out there. Coach Shane Beamer said he was essentially playing on a broken back, and with a full offseason to get healthy, the optimism around Dylan Stewart is astronomically high because despite the low counting stats, there were still some unbelievable jaw-dropping moments on tape from Dylan Stewart, and he's already drawing some pretty lofty comparisons in scouting circles. I think that the first thing you notice when you look at Dylan Stewart is his built-in-a-lab physical traits. He's listed at 6'5", 245 pounds, and he is said to have over 33-inch arms. But what I think is most insane about Stewart is, despite having such a great frame already, it's pretty clear that he's not filled out, and he could pretty easily add on another 10 to 15 pounds of pure muscle. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit, because I think that could go a long way. But it isn't just his size. I don't think that there is a single human being on planet Earth who can move the way that Dylan Stewart moves. He legitimately looks like he's teleporting from point A to point B. He's got one of the most explosive first steps you're ever going to see from a pass rusher, and he pairs that with elite bend and speed to challenge the outside corner. I think he's going to test like an absolute freak show, and when you have traits in the trenches, you're going to get pushed up draft boards. What I love about Dylan Stewart though is that yes, he does have the physical traits and that will take you a long way, but you already see some technical nuance and the ability to win as a pass rusher in a number of different ways. Yes, I think his speed and bend is his best move, but he has flashed a number of really good counters. I think his up and under when working inside is a lethal move where he's able to get underneath the pads of offensive tackles and rock them backwards. I think he flashes a number of really good hand swipes and counters, and he's able to set up second and third pass rush moves. I thought his long arm was incredible where he's able to use his length to his advantage, and I do think that there is power in his game. He flashes the ability to convert speed to power in a major way, and I think that with the variety of moves that he shows, NFL teams will love the different ways he can create pressure at the next level. I also think Dylan Stewart is a solid run defender, which I haven't seen a lot of people praise him for his run defense, but I thought that he showed really good eyes, was able to read and react to RPOs very well, and he flashed the closing speed and burst to disrupt the play in the backfield, and he's accumulated 36 total run stops in his first 2 seasons. I think that number would be a bit higher as well if the missed tackles weren't as high. Dylan Stewart has missed 21% of his tackles in his first 2 years in Columbia, and I think that's a major problem because he can get into the backfield with ease, but he's got to be able to wrap up more consistently, and if that can improve, I think he can be a legitimate every down player who can give you value on early downs. While Dylan Stewart is already further along in his development than most college edge rushers, there are still a couple of questions and concerns I have about his transition to the next level. Firstly, I think he has to get stronger, and we talked about it a little bit that he's 6'5", he's 245 pounds, but he does look a little thin out there, and I think it is especially apparent when you turn on the tape. Too often, Dylan Stewart was pushed around and was unable to set a strong anchor into the turf. I think he has the frame to add muscle, but his balance was a major concern, and as a result, Stewart ended up on the ground way more than you would like to see. I think he can get better in that phase, and I think that balance will get better as he's able to get stronger and hold his own against the more physically imposing offensive linemen, but we still need to see it. I also think that strength is going to come up and be a big part of his development when shedding double teams. It felt like if a team brought chip help his way, the rep was essentially over, and there aren't a lot of instances of him splitting double teams and getting into the backfield. Once again, I think if he adds on more muscle and strength, this will get better, and I think a lot of his issues do come from the fact that he's just not the strongest player right now, which is incredibly terrifying for opposing offensive linemen to think that there's still another level for him to get to physically, and if he can get stronger and add on more muscle, I think he's got the potential to be a legitimate game-changing pass rusher, because even with these question marks, Dylan Stewart to me is still a blue-chip pass rusher. I think he checks all the boxes you look for physically, he showcases a number of pass rushing moves, and he is a willing and able run defender. He is a true 3-down player at the next level, and if he can get back healthy, get a little bit stronger, and improve his tackling, I think he's a surefire lock to go in the top 10, and even if he doesn't improve those things, I still think he probably goes in the top 10 because his traits are that ridiculous. I have Dylan Stewart as my number 2 player in the draft class, and he's my number 1 overall defensive player in the draft. In terms of a scheme fit, I think Stewart is pretty scheme versatile. He can play with his hand in the dirt, which is primarily where South Carolina lines him up, and I think that he could be a pretty effective 4-3 defensive end that can be that heavy-handed player with his hand in the dirt, set a hard edge, play against the run, and I think you would get good production out of him. But I also think in a 3-4 scheme where he's just a true speed rusher and you can weaponize his athleticism around the outside track, I think he could be a legitimate game-changing player, and I think a 3-4 scheme would likely suit his traits and pass rushing ability a little bit better. My player comparison for Dylan Stewart is an incredibly lofty one, and it's former Super Bowl MVP Von Miller. As someone who grew up in the Denver area, Von Miller was a legend to me, and I see so much Von Miller when I watch Dylan Stewart. Both of the guys have unreal athletic ability, speed, bend, that ability to convert speed to power, the ability to force fumbles. We didn't even talk about that, but Dylan Stewart has forced 6 fumbles over his first 2 collegiate seasons. And I think that Von Miller has been one of the best speed rushers that the league has ever seen. I see Dylan Stewart in a very similar mold, and if he can improve his balance, I think he can be a game-wrecking edge rusher in the NFL for a very long time. Dylan Stewart is an alien. He has tools that look like they were built in a lab, and I truly think can be a special talent at the next level. And ultimately, I believe that Dylan Stewart will be a top 10 pick in the 2027 NFL Draft.